No. All right, guys, so you need to choose your colors. Write one color, Mrs. Jones, one color, Roger, because that way we will know who is characterized in which sentence or underlined section. So I'm just going to warn you, there might be a couple of times where we're underlining something that Mrs. Jones or Roger might say, but it's actually helping us characterize the other person. Just hang with us. We might need to add a little more context so that way we fully understand what's happening in our story in terms of characterization, okay? So you'll need your pink because our very first sentence describes who? Mrs. Jones. She was a large woman with a large purse that had everything in it but a hammer and nails. Have you ever heard the phrase, everything but the kitchen sink?
No. Yeah. No.
Okay, that generally means that you have a lot of things, okay? So if she had everything in her purse but a hammer and nails, we can assume that she is packing a lot of stuff around in that bag, yes? Cool. It had a long strap and she carried it slung across her shoulder. Grab your Roger color.
Roger.
It was about 11 o'clock at night and she was walking alone when a boy ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. So that's the first thing that we see of Roger is him trying to steal this lady's purse. The strap broke with a single tug the boy gave it from behind. But the boy's weight and the weight of the purse combined caused him to lose his balance. So instead of taking off full blast as he had hoped, the bell fell on his back onto the sidewalk and his legs flew up. The large woman simply turned around and kicked him right square in the blue jean sitter. Then she reached down, picked the boy up by his shirt front, and shook him until his teeth rattled. Yes, Skylar. Uh-huh. Yep, we can do that. Okay. Mm-hmm. You might need it later. After that, the woman said, "Pick up my pocketbook, boy, and give it here." She still held him, but she bent down enough to permit him to stoop and pick up her purse. Then she said, "Now ain't you ashamed of yourself?" What do we think about Mrs. Jones right here in this section that we've read so far? She's mad. She can hold her own, right? She kicked this kid in the butt. Now she is holding him by his shirt front and shaking him. So his teeth are like, right, rattling back and forth. So now she's holding him up by his shirt front, this old lady. And she says, "Pick up my pocketbook, boy, and give it here." And instead of letting him go, she just like holds him just enough to grab her wallet or her pocketbook and then picks him back up. So she is not playing around, is she? No. So firmly gripped by his shirt front, the boy says what? Yes'm. So she asked, "Now aren't you aren't you ashamed of yourself?" And he's like, "Yes, ma'am." He is maybe in a little bit of shock right now, right? It's just slang. All right. The woman said, "What did you do it for?" The boy said, "I didn't aim to." She said, "You a lie." She's calling him out, right? He's like, "Oh, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to bump into you and break your purse, right?" And she's like, "Not today. I can see right through you." By that time, 2 or 3 people had stopped, turned to look, and some stood watching. "If I turn you loose, will you run?" asked the woman. "Yes'm," said the boy. Okay, so here's one of those moments where we're going to underline something that Mrs. Jones says just because we need the context. So if I turn you loose, will you run? And what does he say? Yes. So the reason why we're underlining this piece here to help us characterize Roger is because if we just underlined yes, said the boy, does that give us any kind of context to what he's doing?
No.
No, it could. Her question could be, do you like to pick your nose and eat your boogers?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Or do you like, are you a leprechaun from Ireland? Yes, okay. So we don't have any context if we only underline his response. That's why we need to underline Mrs. Jones's question in blue here. That way we can see that he's being honest with her, right? She's like, hey, if I let you go, are you going to run away? And he's like, yeah. Totally. Well, he's honest. Okay, yes, Skylar. Okay, we're not there yet. Okay. Okay. Hold on just a second. I can't hear you because other people are talking. Go ahead, Skylar. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's a typo. It happens. All right, moving on. Then I won't turn you loose, said the woman. She did not release him. I'm very sorry, lady. I'm sorry, whispered the boy. Uh-huh, and your face is dirty. I got a great mind to wash it for you. Ain't you got nobody at home to tell you to wash your face? So he's saying, okay, I'm sorry, just let me go. And she's like, no, your face is dirty. I'm going to wash it. Like, don't mess with me, okay? And then she asks him, ain't you got nobody at home to tell you to wash your face? So she's trying to make a point here and get a little sassy with him. But what does he say? No. So what do we learn about Roger there? He doesn't have anybody at home. So live it. But we already decided up here that he's honest, right? Like he just straight up told her, yeah, I'm going to run away. So down here. Yeah, that's true. So leave a little bit of space between your Mrs. Jones color, but I also want you to underline this here. Ain't you got nobody at home to tell you to wash your face? Because again, we need the context of this question to get his response. So that way we know he doesn't have anybody at home to make sure that he's cleaned up and ready for the day. Then it'll get washed this evening, said the large woman, starting up the street, dragging the frightened boy behind her. So you're going to need both colors on this one too. So have them ready. We're going to start with Mrs. Jones. And she tells him what? Yep, she's going to have him wash it this evening, said the large woman, starting up the street. So, and then she starts dragging him. And he is what? Frightened. So that's why we have to do a little insert there. He looked as if he were 14 or 15, frail and willow wild in tennis shoes and blue jeans. So this is all Roger right here. We know his age. We know that he's a little thin and fragile. He's wild looking. So, okay, we don't need those comments. The woman said, you ought to be my son. I would teach you right from wrong. Least I can do right now is to wash your face. Are you hungry? What does that tell us about her? So Mrs. Jones, so Roger tries to steal Mrs. Jones's purse. Unsuccessful at his attempt. She kicks his butt. She rattles his teeth. She gives him a good handling, right? And then she's lecturing him like, oh my gosh, this is not happening. Do you have people at home? And he's like, no. So then she starts to feel a little compassionate towards him. So now she's saying, you ought to be my son. I would teach you right from wrong, because he's trying to steal, right? We should know that stealing is wrong. Least I can do right now is to wash your face. Are you hungry? So now she's over being mad at him for stealing her purse. She's forgiving him, okay?
But she's stern.
She is. Yeah, she's being very stern, but loving. Sometimes we need that.
There's a lot of she's like holding her ground and she's not moving.
Yep, she is stubborn. That's a good word. Okay. Noam, said the boy being dragged, I just want you to turn me loose. So he is adamant that he wants to get away from this lady. He's even said that if she lets him go, he's going to run away.
Well, he's being honest.
Yep, he's being honest. Was I bothering you when I turned that corner? Asked the woman. Noam, but you put yourself in contact with me. If you think that contact is not going to last a while, you got another thought coming. When I get through with you, sir, you're going to remember Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. So like Beckett said, she's being stubborn. She's holding her ground. Sweat popped out of the boy's face and he began to struggle. So think about this for a second. What emotion or what things are you experiencing when your heart's racing and you're sweating?
Scared.
Yeah, you're scared, you're nervous.
Or you're sick.
Or you're sick. In this instance, he's probably a little scared or nervous because he's stuck with this lady and he can't get away from her. Mrs. Jones stopped, jerked him around in front of her, put a half Nelson about his neck, and continued to drag him up the street. When she got to her door, she dragged the boy inside, down the hall, and into a large kitchenette-furnished room at the rear of the house. She switched on the light and left the door open. The boy could hear the other roomers laughing and talking in the large house. Some of their doors were open too, so he and the woman were not alone. The woman still had him by the neck in the middle of her room. She said, "What's your name?" "Roger," answered the boy. "Then, Roger, you go to that sink and wash your face," said the woman. Whereupon she turned him loose at last. Roger looked at the door, looked at the woman, looked at the door, and went to the sink. So up until this point, he was adamant that he was going to get away from this lady. Like, I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm going to fight you. So she drags him to her house and then she lets him go. The door's open. And what does he not do? Yeah, he doesn't run away. He stays there. Maybe. Let the water run until it gets warm. Here's a clean towel. Here's a clean towel. Okay, again, we're going to underline a question. That way we can understand Mrs. Jones's response. You gonna take me to jail? Asked the boy, bending over the sink. Not with that face. I would not take you nowhere, said the woman. Here I am, trying to get home to cook me a bite to eat, and you snatch my pocketbook. Maybe you ain't been to supper either, late as it be. Have you? So he said, are you going to take me to jail? And she basically laughs at him like, no, I would not take you anywhere the way that you look. His face is dirty. His hair is a mess. So what does that tell us about her?
She has a mean sense of humor.
Okay, she's got a little bit of a sense of humor. It's a little sarcastic, a little quick-witted. Keep that in mind, quick-witted. Yeah, so if somebody is witty, they pop off with answers that kind of like make you laugh under your breath a little bit, like one of those things, you know what I mean? Yes, exactly. Okay, so she asks him, have you eaten? And he's like, there's nobody at my house. So we know a little bit more about Roger here. He doesn't have anybody at home. Then we'll eat, said the woman. I believe you're hungry or have been trying to snatch my pocketbook. I wanted a pair of blue suede shoes, said the boy. Well, you didn't have to snatch my pocketbook to get some suede shoes, said Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. You could have asked me. So now she has opened her home and she's like, okay, seriously, you must have been hungry, trying to steal my wallet. And he's like, no, I just wanted a pair of shoes. Right? Well, he doesn't have anybody at home. His face is a mess and he's hungry. So he probably doesn't have anybody to care for him. So he's probably not he doesn't have the best quality items at home, okay? His shoes might be really beat up, but we don't know that. Anyway, he's like, ma'am, he's a little confused here. Like, I could have just asked you for money. You're just going to give a stranger money if they ask for it. The water dripping from his face, the boy looked at her. There was a long pause, a very long pause. This is Roger. After he dried his face, not knowing what else to do, dried it again, the boy turned around, wondering what next. The door was open. He could make a dash for it down the hall. He could run, 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 run. So he is in there by himself. And he chooses to stay. We need to write this down with your pencil. Roger chooses to stay. And yes, I put it in all capital letters because this is a big moment in the story. This whole first part, he was fighting Mrs. Jones tooth and nail, scrambling, trying to get away. He's like, yep, if you let me go, I'm going to run. And now all of a sudden, he's not so eager to run away.
Maybe it's because he's like, oh, she's going to give me money anyway.
Maybe.
And then, or he's like, she's feeding me.
Okay, so maybe it's her kindness coming out like, hey, I'm going to lecture you. I'm going to put you in your place because somebody needs to parent you. But there's another way around this. And we're confused right now as to why. Like, he's confused. Why would I ask you for money? And why would you give some stranger money if they ask for it?
Well, if somebody just, like, if I asked somebody for money and they gave it to me, I would be
Well,
thankful.
yes. Okay. So let's try to figure out why. Thank you, Christian. The woman was sitting on the daybed, and after a while she said, I were young once, and I wanted things I could not get. So now we kind of understand the perspective behind her kindness. She has been there before. She's been in his place. So I were young once, and I wanted things that I could not get. There was another, yes, what's up, Beckett? Okay, this is not relevant to our lesson right now. So there was another long pause. The boy's mouth opened. Then he frowned, but not knowing he frowned. The woman said, you thought I was going to say, but didn't you? You thought I was going to say, but didn't I snatch people's, but I didn't snatch people's pocketbooks. Sorry, there's just a random 3 in here. You thought I was going to say, but didn't you? You thought I was going to say, but I didn't snatch people's pocketbooks. Well, I wasn't going to say that. Pause. Silence. I've done things too, which I would not tell you, son. Neither tell God if he didn't already know. So you sit down while I fix us something to eat. You might run that comb through your hair so you'll look presentable. So she's opening up about her past. She's saying, oh yeah, you probably think, oh, I didn't steal people's pocketbooks. I wasn't a thief. Well, I wasn't going to say that. So she's insinuating that she has been in a similar situation and made similar life choices. She even goes on to say, I've done things too, which I would not tell you, son, neither tell God if he didn't already know. So she has a little bit of shame in her past, right? She doesn't want to talk about it. She's a little embarrassed of it, but she obviously is making better life choices, right? Well, we don't know that she has a job yet. No, she's living in an apartment.
Oh, I thought that was her house.
It might be her house. We don't know for sure. Maybe. In another corner of the room, behind the screen, was a gas plate and an icebox. Mrs. Jones got up and went behind the screen. The woman did not watch to see if the boy was going to run now, nor did she watch her purse, which she left behind on the daybed. So she's leaving her purse and Roger unattended in a different corner of her apartment. Why? Yeah, she's giving him the opportunity to make a better choice.
I'm just wondering, what's a daybed? Yeah.
A daybed is like, it's like a bed that could also serve, it's not a pull-out couch, but it's a bed that she would also use as a couch. Does that make sense? So it might have like the headboard. So like if a twin size bed, you know what a twin size bed size is? It's like approximately the size of that table that Amia is using. Okay, so instead of the headboard being on that side, okay, on the short end, the headboard's going to be on the long side to kind of create like a backrest. So you could use it as like a couch or another piece of furniture other than a bed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the boy took care to sit on the far side of the room where he thought she could easily see him out of the corner of her eye, if she wanted to. He did not trust the woman not to trust him, and he did not want to be mistrusted now. So she is giving him the opportunity to make a good choice. She's setting him up for success so that way he knows he can make good choices. She wants to reward him for this good choice, okay? So she leaves her purse unattended. She leaves the door open and she goes to make dinner. Roger has the opportunity to stay in this like thief category, right? And grab her purse and run. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't even stay hidden from her in the apartment. What does he do?
He stands next to her to where she can see him.
Yeah, so maybe not just right next to her, but he does position himself to make sure that she could see him if she wanted to. So let's do a quick little demonstration. Hold your hands out like this. Okay. Give me some spirit fingers. Jazz hands.
That's what we do.
Right?
On the bleachers.
Okay. Now slowly move your hands out to the side, but I want you to keep looking straight forward. Okay. When your fingers disappear, that's where your peripheral vision ends. So you might be looking over here, but you can still see your fingers over here on the sides, right? So Roger doesn't go sit directly in front of Mrs. Jones, but he kind of stands into her peripheral vision. Peripheral vision generally gets my toddler into trouble, right? He'll say, "Mom, can I have more fruit snacks?" And I'll be like, "Oh no, we're gonna have dinner in like 30 minutes, okay?" Okay. And then he's like down here in my peripheral vision, digging through the cabinet, trying to find fruit snacks, right? Okay, so Roger tries to get in her peripheral vision. So we know that he wants to make good choices. He wants to please her. "Do you need somebody to go to the store?" asked the boy, maybe to get some milk or something. So now he is looking for her approval. He positions himself so that way she could see him. Now he's even offering to go to the store for her. Think about it. It's late. She's an older lady that lives by herself. Like he wants to pay her back for the kindness that she has showed him. So then she says, "I don't believe I do," said the woman, "unless you want sweet milk yourself. I was going to make cocoa out of this canned milk here." "That'll be fine," said the boy. She heated some lima beans and ham that she had in the icebox, made cocoa, and set the table. The woman did not ask the boy anything about where he lived or his folks or anything else that would embarrass him. Instead, as they ate, she told him about her job in a hotel beauty shop that stayed open late, what the work was like, and how all kinds of women came in and out, blondes, redheads, and Spanish. Then she cut him a half of her 10-cent cake. So all of this right here, we're going to spare some ink, is Mrs. Jones. So she's already told him, like, "I've been in your shoes. I'm embarrassed of my past. I'm going to spare you details." Yeah, it's a lot of Miss Jones. So instead of prying questions like, "Where do you live? Where are your parents? Why aren't your parents home? Why aren't you in school?" Like things that would be shameful to him or he might be embarrassed of, she just talks. Like, "Hey, I'm just going to tell you to fill the space of silence. That way it's not weird. I'm going to tell you about my life. That way you know that somebody who's also come from your situation can make a better life for themselves," right? So she has made poor choices. She has a shameful past, but now she has a job at a beauty shop and she seems to like it. She gets to meet all kinds of people. She has enough food to spare, like she can share with her neighbors or people like Roger who might need it. And then she's like, "Oh, by the way, I have dessert." Everybody loves dessert, right? Exactly. So she said, "Eat some more, son." When they were finished,
She got up and said, "Now here, take this $10 and buy yourself some blue suede shoes. And next time, do not make the mistake of latching onto my pocketbook, nor nobody else's, because shoes come by devilish like that will burn your feet. I gotta get my rest now, but I wish you would behave yourself, son, from here on in." So now she has fed him, he's cleaned up. She's ready to go to bed, so she's gonna give him one last lesson. She gives him some money and then she warns him. She's like, "Hey, don't steal, because the repercussions of that will be bad." So she says, "Shoes come by devilish like that will burn your feet." Essentially meaning if you steal, like, it's going to come back around to get you. Yes, you're going to feel guilty. Things aren't going to work out for you. Just make better choices. She led him down the hall to the front door and opened it. "Good night. Behave yourself, boy," she said, looking out into the street. The boy wanted to say something else other than "Thank you, ma'am," to Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones, but he couldn't do so as he turned at the barren stoop and looked back at the large woman in the door. He barely managed to say "thank you" before she shut the door, and he never saw her again. Hold on.
Maybe he passed away.
Maybe.
Because I'm not sure he walked good amounts of miles with a different town.
Well, she walks to and from work. So this last section here, the boy wanted to say something else other than "Thank you, ma'am," to Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones, but he couldn't do so as he turned at the barren stoop to look back at the large woman in the door. He barely managed to say "thank you" before she shut the door, and he never saw her again. So if you remember back to Friday, that's when I saw you guys last, right? Friday?
Yeah.
We talked about the different emotions and the different thoughts that he was wrestling with at this time. He was probably embarrassed because she showed him kindness when she shouldn't have, right? She should have just taken him to jail and been done with it, but she chose not to.
But he was a child.
He was. But if you commit a crime as a child, there's still consequences. You don't just get off scotch-free. So he is wrestling with maybe some embarrassment. He's a little confused. He's grateful. He might be a little scared. So there are lots of things that he's wrestling around in his head. So he wants to say more to her, but he can't because he's trying to process everything that just happened. If it's not relevant to this activity, no. Okay, you need this page. You'll also need your story that we just worked through. But we're going to work with this as well. So what I want you to do is go through our story. I'm going to give you 4 character traits. It's going to be your job to go back through our story where we've done our color coding and pick out those 4 character traits. A sticky note? Okay. I'm going to give you 4 character traits. 4 for Mrs. Jones, 4 for Roger, so 8 in total. You are going to go label these 4 character traits where we see them in our story. We'll do the first one together. So our first one is going to be stubborn. Where do we first see Mrs. Jones being stubborn in our story?
The beginning.
Yeah, read it to me, Shane.
I just said the beginning. I got when she won't let go of him. Yeah. So I
Good.
Or when she half knows him.
Okay. Yes, that would come later. Is that what you wanted to say too?
No, it's whenever she turns around and like whenever he fell on his back and then she turns around.
Good. And kicks him in the butt, right? Okay, so you're going to write stubborn right here because the large woman simply turned around and kicked him right square in his blue jean sitter. Then she reached down, picked up the boy by his shirt front and shook him until his teeth rattled. She didn't just leave him, right? She kicked him in the butt. She lifted him up by his shirt and shook him, okay? And that was just the beginning. So right here, you're going to say stubborn.
I thought we were supposed to write it in.
You are. Write stubborn here. I'm going to spare you from filling in this part here. We'll do that later. So right now, I just want you to find the character traits within our story. The other words that we're going to look for today, the other character traits that we're looking for. Compassionate. Quick-witted. And forgiving. Mm-hmm.
Wait, what's her name?
Mrs. Jones.
This is the level page Washington.
Luella. Okay, flip it over. It sounds like we're done. Okay, you're talking about something else, so that shows me that you're done. On the back side, Roger is reckless. He makes reckless decisions. He's nervous. He's honest. And he's eager to please. Where do we first notice Roger being reckless? Trying to steal the purse. Very good. So that first, yep. So right here. It was about 11 o'clock at night and she was walking alone when a boy ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. So we'll say reckless. See how we do that? Okay, if you need those words. They're here. So you have 1 minute before the bell rings. You can get started on that, or you may pack up. Skylar, since you like to stay in here, you can work on your homework.
Exactly. Where do we put it?
Put it all back in your binder.
Like in the same spot?
Yes, in the same spot. All right, guys, have a good day. We'll see you, Colton, we'll see you in a few minutes.
We'll see you in a week.
Because he doesn't like what it is.